2.5 years ago, I wrote what I think was the first online course for financial technologies, understanding financial technologies, or sort of FinTech 101, which was created with members of Innovate Finance, large banks, credit card companies, telecoms, devices manufacturers, and this long tail of tech entrepreneurs, all really keen to pull people into financial services, to look at technology and how it could be used, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and ready to go. And just to talk to one of Mick's point, it was actually aimed at people in financial services, perhaps the people with a bit more greying hair that needed to understand the power of technology, as well as those young, enthusiastic people who wanted to start and scale up their businesses to a huge extent. So the very fast pace of fintech means that we have to update this course, and we updated it again this year. And so what I want to do in my 5 minutes is really just to make some wider observations based on revisiting the course about what's happening now, what's changed, and then to come back to some of the more specific areas of Jamie's talk. So first of all, what has changed? The landscape has changed a lot even in that 2.5 years. There's been a massive influx of new companies. Some have gone. That's the nature of entrepreneurship. There's been a proliferation of the specialization in fintech. So we've got these sort of micro segments of companies going into robo-advice. They weren't there before. RegTech, InsurTech, all of these increasing specializations and segmentation of the financial systems and where technologies are being applied. That's gone. That's happened. There's been some new technologies, some new innovations, and Jamie referred to the blockchain, the distributed ledger technology on which Bitcoin was founded. It was in its infancy when we started, but there's a lot of collaboration and partnership across banks and large insurance companies now that are working to look at use cases for that and see how they can use it. So not actually the fintech companies, but the big banks collaborating together, probably to retain some control of their financial systems, if I'm being maybe slightly skeptical about it. But in any case, it does actually have a lot of potential benefits for us all. So the collaboration, the utilization and the partnerships also are between the financial services institutions and the fintech companies. Some have been acquired, and some are working in this partnership arrangement where the fintech companies are using their technology, but also using some of these techniques that we've been hearing about, the behavioral finance, the social media, the apps, the use of data to provide skills, techniques, knowledge, and methodologies, business models that aren't in the incumbent financial services companies at the moment. And I stress some of the skills that are not there. So these advanced data skills, the analytics, these are skills which are in short supply, I would say, in general in large financial services companies. Mostly, though, what I've seen is not so much out-and-out innovation, but more use of fintech to make existing financial systems run more smoothly, to make them more efficient, to make large institutions more effective and more efficient. I like Jamie's definition of technology as the means of empowering customers, and that is surely needed, and I'm going to come back to that. But first of all, I just want to take a slight diversion to talk about a book called What's Mine is Yours. Collaborative Consumption is Changing the Way We Live. It's written by Rachel Botsman and Rue Rogers. They wrote it in 2011, and they identified, apart from the fact what they're talking about is this emergence of the gig economy, the share economy. And I think that has implications for financial services down the line, because if people are no longer buying assets, but they are sharing them, then we're going to have to consider different products and services that fit a different way of life. And maybe they're not buying them because they simply can't afford them. So I just want to throw that one out there. But they identified 4 conditions that make any sector a target for disruption. And I think you will probably recognize that since the last financial crisis, this is what made financial technologies, we've got 1 minute, but I'm going to go over, susceptible to this potential disruption in entrepreneurship. Number one, that fees or charges can be cut out of the process to benefit customers. And I think this removal of intermediaries, this move to platforms and aggregator websites has reduced the cost to serve for customers, and therefore it has reduced fees for people. Secondly, where there's unnecessary complexity in the system, fintech has improved, and I think it's certainly changed onboarding of customers in many of these institutions. It's reduced the friction or the barriers or the ease with which they are dealing with financial services companies. So that's been a benefit, I think. Thirdly, where there are people that are excluded from the system that could be given access to it. And again, we've been talking about that, but mobile technologies, particularly in developing countries, have really improved inclusion and access to finance. And the fourth criteria is trust, where the trust has broken down. And I don't think we can argue that that has happened with mis-selling. It's happened with the sort of pensions shortfalls, scandals, bonus culture, etc. And for me, there are a few issues arising from all of these that impact on the future of fintech and also financial inclusion, customer engagement with their financial futures. So just quickly, what they are. I think the existing financial services institutions perhaps should be worried about the potential for these cash-rich large tech companies with their very deep pockets and their excellent customer relationships, their trust in their brand, their ability to gather and manage and do all this fantastic stuff with data. I think they should be worried because perhaps they might just think about banking licenses and then maybe they just clean up. So that's just one thought. Just going back to the collaborative consumption, they're very good at getting people to buy more, pushing them, cross-selling, selling on services. So what happens if they're also banks? So we've got this collaborative, we've got this sort of compulsive consumption and the push towards money as well. I'm not sure that would help. The share economy, as I've said, is changing, in particular, younger people's attitudes to assets. Why own if you can rent or borrow in the short term? There's already financial services products out there that allow you to insure or borrow somebody's car for an hour with insurance. So that micro insurance is possible. And maybe there's more that needs to be done with that. The data is also, people are also using data gathered from consumers to actually design products that they are searching for on the web. So designing products that they want rather than designing products we want to sell. So there's maybe an opportunity there from fintech as well. And my last point is just something that's a little bit more out there, but Jamie referenced sort of forthcoming GDPR, PSD2 regulation that's going to look very much at what data people have and what they can do with it. And a big aspect of that is that consumers, people giving their data, will have to give their consent for that data to be used. Now, going back to the question of empowerment, I just want to pose this question that true empowerment is understanding that people are taking your data and they are monetizing it for their gain, either because they have a platform that allows them to personalize it and sell products back to you, or they're selling it on to third parties. That's fair enough. But what if we had an economy like the energy one where people were generating their electricity and selling it back to the grid? What about if I said, you can have my data, you can use it, but I want a discount? And that's my final point. Thank you very much.